All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining. We are the Product Success Team. I am Rodney,
And I am Lex.
and today we'll be going over labor and scheduling with Aldelo Express. If you have any questions, please keep your questions related to the topic at hand. Please keep yourselves muted during the presentation. And if you do have an immediate question, you can ask your questions in the chat. We will be moderating the chat as always. Otherwise, you can ask your questions verbally when we open the floor for questioning. Just make sure to unmute yourselves at that time. All right. So with Aldelo Express, labor and scheduling is a basic feature, meaning it is fully included and it is free. All the data and activity is centralized. So if the business is using an external time clock device, there is no integration with the point of sale. Restaurant owners or managers may have to log into a different portal to access and manage employee activity. With Aldelo Express, labor and scheduling is managed all under one login, whether it be from the back office cloud or from the application. Also from the back office cloud, payroll reporting can be generated based off of employee activity after the activity has been reviewed and verified. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the labor and scheduling feature is completely free, but it does have to be configured, customized, and managed from the back office cloud and the application. But first, we'll be going over the setup. There are three areas that need to be set up to take full advantage of the labor and scheduling feature. First is the staff config, and here's where the foundation is laid. Next is employees. Here's where the employees are added and configured. And then there is scheduling. You can set up schedules for added employees to adhere to. Then we'll be going over managing the employee activity that's recorded or not recorded. First, there is the time cards. Technically, one only needs to access the time card sections if edits need to be made. Time cards can be viewed under pay periods. And from here, pay periods are managed and ultimately closed. Once closed, pay period reports can be generated. Now, this is just an overview of what we will be covering. We will get into more detail on it all in the following slides. Again, the staff config, as I said, is where the foundation is laid. To access the staff config from the back office cloud, go to Settings, Store Config, Staff Config. First, you will need to set up the payroll options. Here, you will have to define the pay period or the frequency in which employees will receive their paychecks, whether it be weekly, semi-weekly, semi-monthly, or monthly. Next, you will define the overtime rates and rules. Now, this is very important to verify. You need to make sure to set this up with the values that adhere to the local or state labor laws. Holidays can also be defined under this section. Holidays do need to be entered manually if the store will be open during that or those holidays. The holiday pay scale serves as a baseline for what the holiday pay rate will be when creating new employees. The next section under staff config is the time card options. Here you can define rounding and grace minutes, basically what minute the activity is rounded to, when the employee can clock in and out without manager approval. From here, you can also apply minimum tip reporting and for specified services and what the percentage will be. This requires tips are reported above the minimum amount in order to clock out. You can also determine whether the employee receives gratuity owed to them at the end of the day or at the end of the pay period. Lastly, there is the POS options. Here you can prompt and even require employee login, then set requirements that can prevent clocking out, such as not clocking out if there are existing open orders under that employee, or if the employee has an open cashier or server bank. Next, we will be going over the employee file setup. This can be located under Staff Employees. Then you can select an employee to edit or create a new employee. Now, there are a lot of settings that go into setting up employees, but we will focus on settings that affect labor and scheduling. First is the POS security level. Now, in order for some of these rules and scheduling requirements to be followed, the employee POS security level needs to be below certain securities. Securities such as approved time card exceptions and editing time cards. If, let's say, an employee had the highest POS access, and by default, the approved time card exceptions is also highest access, regardless of what that employee's schedule is set to, he or she can clock in at any time without manager approval. This also requires that the schedule not enforced setting is disabled. Next is the payroll info. Here you can set up the employee to be hourly or salaried and what their pay rate will be. Then we have the holiday pay. Here's where you can define which holiday pay scale will apply to if the employee works on a designated holiday. Then there are a couple of settings under the POS operations. First, there is the receive tips. Back in the staff config, there was a minimum tip reporting option. Receive tips must be enabled if minimum tip reporting is required. I mentioned this earlier, but in order for the employees to adhere to their set schedule, the schedule not enforced must be disabled so that the employees can only clock in and out during their scheduled time unless approved by a manager. Lastly, we will get into the employment status. If a business has a high turnover of employees, if they have a low turnover for that matter, managing the status of employees is very important when it comes to reviewing pay periods. When an employee is no longer employed by the business, it is best that a termination date is defined. Now, this is automatically triggered when the employee is set to released. This will also remove them from any subsequent pay periods. Thus, the pay periods will only reflect active employees. In order to have employees adhere to a schedule has to be created for them. To create employee schedules, you can go to Staff Scheduling. There will be a drop-down at the top of the screen where a specific employee can be selected. When creating a schedule, you can simply set the clock in and clock out times for the days to be worked. If recording breaks, those times may be entered as well, and they can be set to either compensated or non-compensated. You can define up to 3 daily shifts. This is for businesses that are closed during certain times of the day. That being said, regardless of how many shifts are set, the maximum clock-ins per employee in one day is 3, even if the employee does not even have a set schedule. Multiple schedules can be set up for employees if there may be any variation to their default schedule. And creating schedules can be a tedious task. There is an override feature where you can take the schedule of an employee that is already set up, and if there are other employees with the same or similar schedule, we can use the override schedule to copy that schedule over. Note that if the employee schedule you are editing has an existing schedule, it will be overwritten. When schedules have been updated, they can be emailed to the select employees, where the employee can either confirm the schedule or decline, and decline with comment. So that was a lot of information we've covered in the setup portion. We will be going over managing the employee activity next, but before we do that, the floor is open for questioning. So now that we've covered the setup, now we'll go over managing employee activity. Under staff time cards, we can access the time cards of individual employees. For the current pay period, we can view and review employee activity. If edits need to be made, certain edits can be made from the cloud. Clock out time edits can only be made from the back office cloud, as well as clock in times. And if an employee clocked in but forgot to clock out, what will happen is once the date rolls over, the clock out time will revert to the clock in time, thus recording 0 hours worked. The clock out time can be edited from there. Breaks can also be manually added in as well if not recorded. Time cards can be deleted, but they cannot be added from the back office cloud. That can only be done directly from the Aldelo Express app, and we'll go over that later. Now, to delete a time card, it has to be on the current pay period. Then after accessing the time card, remove the clock out date and save. Access the time card again, then delete. Also from the time card screen, time cards can be emailed to the employee. This can be done to have the employee verify that there is no discrepancy with their time cards. And lastly is the pay periods. This can be found under staff pay periods. Now there are 3 statuses pay periods can fall under. Preview current, which displays the current pay period. Ready to end, which is the oldest pay period and is ready to close. This can be the previous pay period, but that depends on if the pay periods are managed regularly. If the pay periods are not managed regularly, there can be pay periods that are queued to end. These can only be closed once the previous ready to end pay period is closed. Now, whomever is tasked with payroll will need to review the pay period and all the employee activity, then end the pay period. This is where managing employee status is important. If there are, let's say, 20 employees who are no longer employed, but the termination date has not been set, those former employees will have to be filtered through when reviewing. But if this is managed correctly, it will make the pay period review easier to navigate. Now, in mid-review, if there's anything that needs to be edited, they can still go back to the time card section and make those changes. Again, they want to look for that 0-hour time card, if any. And once everything is verified, they can end the pay period. The next step is to go into the pay period history and select the most recently closed pay period. They will be able to generate the pay period report by exporting to any one of the following file types: PDF, Excel, or JSON. There is an option to reopen if they need to make last-minute changes. So that completes the cloud setup and management. We will move over to the Aldelo Express application. Now, there are 3 methods of logging in through the application. Employees can clock in by accessing time cards from the miscellaneous screen. Accessing the driver module, there is also a time card button there as well. Now, the third option is dependent on the setting from the staff config. There is a setting prompt clock in after POS login. If this is enabled, when they first log into the application, if the employee is not clocked in yet, they will be prompted to do so. And once clocked in, employees can view the time card module. From here, the employee can record breaks, report cash tips. They can view their work schedule if that is set up, and they can view their time card activity under the current pay period. Then at the end of their shift, the employees can clock out. Right. So as I mentioned earlier from the back office cloud, time cards can be reviewed, edited, and deleted. Time cards can be edited from the application as well. You can view time cards under the current pay period. Time cards can be edited by adding breaks. You can also delete the time card, but that is limited to open time cards. One unique edit that can only be done from the application directly is adding time cards. Time cards can be added if maybe an employee just forgot to clock in and out, or if there's an open time card and the employee already left for the day. What has to be done here is they have to edit the time card and delete the current time card, then add it back in with the correct worked hours. Time cards can be edited from 3 different modules: the time card from miscellaneous, the time card via the driver module, and also in the end of day, you can view open time cards. So this can only be done from the end of day if the time card is still open. All right, so do we have any questions before we move on? Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on. I'll go ahead and hand it over to Lex for a live demonstration here.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and start off with the payroll options. To get to the payroll options, we're going to go to settings. We're going to go to store config, and then we're going to go to staff config. We're going to go ahead and minimize the general options here, and then we're going to click on the payroll options. From the payroll options, you'll see pay period here. So this is how often you're going to be paying the employees. Right now, I have it set to biweekly. You can change this by clicking on the drop-down menu. You can set it to weekly, biweekly, semi-monthly, or monthly. You could even set the last day of the work week. I have mine set for Saturday. We also have initial pay period start date as well. So for example, if you just created customer's account and the customer is going to start using the point of sale on October, you can select the date here. So I can select the date, and then let's start on the 23rd, or the 1st. But that is optional. And then you also want to take a look at your labor laws and employment regulations as well. because these settings might be different between mine and yours. So, for example, overtime pay in California is 150%. Double time pay is 200%. You have daily overtime pay when exceeds. So, for example, in California, it's anything over 8 hours. And then double pay, I believe it's 12 hours. I could be wrong. It could be 16 in California, but you do have an option to define that here. We also have weekly overtime pay when exceeds. So, for example, a combination of all the dates together, I have mine set to 40 hours. This is optional as well. And then we also have treat consecutive workday as overtime pay when hours exceeds. If you leave this blank or enter zero, anytime you work, it will record as overtime until the hours meet the double time threshold. If you enter in a value greater than zero, anytime worked under that value will be recorded as regular pay, and overtimes for the hours greater than that value until you hit the double time value. And then we also have treat consecutive workday as double pay. So anything over 8 hours on the seventh consecutive day, then I'll get double time here. Right, so we're going to scroll down a little bit here. We also have auto insert missing break upon clock out. So basically what that means is if you have a scheduled appointment for one of your employees, you entered in their breaks and lunch. If you say yes here, whenever that person clocks out, it'll automatically add the breaks and lunches for them. However, if you have this set to no, then that means that employees has to clock in and out of their breaks. And you also have missed break penalty award minutes. So if that employee is working through their lunch hour, they're going to get paid for those as well. Right below this, we have holiday pay date list. So if you needed to add additional holiday, just click on config holiday pay dates. And then there is a add bracket here on the bottom. So let's go ahead and put a test here. And then I'm going to select a date. Let's do October 9th and then save. You'll see that the holiday date that I just added got added to the holiday pay. And then you also have holiday pay scale. So basically, if you're creating a new employee here, is this employee going to get paid regular, overtime, or double? I have mine set for double time. So when I create a new employee, it's automatically going to add holiday pay scale as double time here.
And one thing to note with the holiday dates list, you can save the bracket, but you want to make sure to hit the save at the bottom of the screen, or else it doesn't save the holiday in that list there.
Yeah, that's correct. All right, so now we're going to go to the time card options here. As what Rodney was talking about, we also have clock in rounding minutes. So basically what this is if the employee clocks in at 9:57, it'll automatically clock him in at 9:55 here. And then we also have grace minutes as well. So the clocking grace minutes is how early or how late that person can clock in on the grace minutes. Right, so now we're going to scroll down to minimum tip reporting. Now this is optional. I just put 8% minimum tip reporting. So when the employee clocks out, they have to report at least minimum of 8%. This is optional.
And then, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that 8% includes either cash transactions or credit card as well.
Yeah. Then we also have gratuity held until payroll. If you say yes here, then that means the tips will be paid out at the payroll. If you have it set to no, then the employee will get paid the tips or gratuity at the end of the day. Now we can go to POS options here. As you can see, there's prompt clock in after POS login. So what that means is if you say yes here, it'll automatically bring up the clock in screen. If you have it set to no, then that means the employee needs to log in and click on time card and make sure that they clock in. Right. And then this one's also important as well. So clock out required all orders created by employee closed. So what that means is if that person creates an order and leaves it open, if that employee tries to clock out, it's going to remind them, letting them know that they have an open order that they need to close out, or they can transfer it out to another employee. You can't say no there. However, you will have open orders or possible open orders. So I I recommend this to be on. All right, so now we're going to go to staff, and then we're going to go to employees. As you can see, I have a bunch of employees already added in here. If you needed to create a new employee, just click create new employee. The minimum requirements is first name, last name, the level of access that they have, and then you can save. Now, the passcode is optional. However, to log in to the system, you do need to make sure that they have access codes. I would um, highly suggest you enter an access code in here for that employee. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and dismiss this here. I'm going to just open up a existing employee. All right, so this one has average access to the point of sale. If I click on show extended settings, we do have the contact information. I have my email address added here. And it's up to you if you want to put in their phone number or address as well. And then on the payroll, this person's set for hourly. But if I switch this off, then that means that person's going to get paid salary. If this person's getting paid salary, just make sure that it's set for how much that person's going to make the entire year. So something like that. And then if you say yes here, you'll have an option for a holiday pay. It's set for overtime or double time or regular time here. And then if I scroll down a little bit, we also have received tips. So if this person is going to be receiving tips, you can say yes here. And also the scheduled non-enforced. So what this means, if I say yes here, it means that this employee will be able to log in. So if you have a work schedule and that person logs in outside of that work schedule, they can. If this is set to no, then that means they have to enter in a manager code before they can clock in. All right, so now we're going to scroll down to other options in here. You'll see that what Rodney was talking about, you have the date terminated. So if you click on employee is released, it'll automatically add a date up here. So the person won't be able to use the software after this date. Now you can add like a custom date here as well. So for example, if the employee turns in his 2-week notice, you want to have him keep working here, you can click on the date on top, and then you can select a certain day. So basically what this means is the employee will be able to work until 9/4/2023. All right, so now we're gonna go to scheduling. So to add a work schedule for an employee, you just need to click on the drop-down menu, and then you're gonna select an employee that you want to create a schedule for. So for example, I'm gonna select on James here. You know what? Let me delete this time card real quick. Okay, so I'm gonna select James here. As you can see, this person does not have any work schedule. So for example, if this person is gonna be working on Monday, I can select Monday. I can add a work schedule here. So let's do 8 o'clock, 8 to 5. And then we can add in his break as well. I can add the lunch break. and then I can add one more break here. All right, as you can see, the break automatically added a compensation here. Now I can go ahead and click save. Oh, before I move over, you can see that you can set up to 3 different work schedules, like what Rodney was saying. Then I can go ahead and click save. Now, on the top, so for example, if I wanted to copy this exact schedule for this employee and I want to add it to other employees, I can click override schedules for. If I click on this, I can select other employees here. So for example, I want to add this to Ken and Robert J. And now I can click override. And now those employees will have the same work schedule. So if I click on Robert J, they'll have the same work schedule on Monday. I have an option to email the work schedule as well. So if I click on email here, this is going to send it to James, but I do need to have an email address added here. Or I can send emails. So for example, if you're working on a bunch of work schedules for a bunch of people, you can email all the work schedules all at once. So if I select that, I can select all here. As you can see, some of these employees does not have an email address. So I do need to add email address here to be sent out. Once the email is sent to the employee has the option to accept or decline the work schedule. So, all right. So now we're going to go to time cards on the left. So the time cards allows you to look at previous time cards or look at current time cards here. And then from here, you can actually edit someone's time card. So for example, James clocked in at 8:45 here. He's supposed to clock in at 8 o'clock. And then I confirm on my video feed that he did clock or come in at 8. He just forgot to clock in. So I can go ahead and click on the time card here. And now I can adjust his clock in from 8:45 to 8. I can even add his break as well. So if he forgot to clock out of his break and clock in his break, I can add that here as well. And I can click save. Now, as you saw inside the time card, there's a delete option here. So there's a delete time card. I can clock this person out. So let me go ahead and clock out this person real quick. And if I go back to time card, you'll notice that the delete option is no longer here. I do need to delete the clock out. So I just need to X out here. And then if I click save and come back to that same time card, now that this time card is available for you to select. The other way of editing someone's time card is through pay periods. You'll notice that the select pay periods is on current pay period here. And any name that has a red marking on it basically means that this person is still clocked in. So these people are still clocked in here. So I'm going to go ahead and clock out Stu here. But what you'll notice a little bit different from the time card is when I click on the clock out, you'll notice that it's only the clock out button. There's no adding the breaks or lunches and stuff like that. It's only the clock out. So if you needed to update that person's clock out, you do need to go back to time cards, look for that person here. And then I can go back to that time card and then update the break. All right, so let's come back to pay periods here. As you can see, we have the selected pay period. What Rodney was talking about earlier is you have up to three different pay period statuses. We have current, there's ready to end, and there's queued to end. So basically, the ready to end means it's I can end this now. So I can just click on the ready to end. And then if I scroll down to the very bottom, I have an option to end pay period. Now, if I go back to select pay period here, you'll notice that that previous pay period is no longer there. Now, if I select the ready to end here, I can scroll down and then end the pay period. And if I go back, you'll notice that it's only the current pay periods available here. Now, if I needed to go back to that pay period, I can click on search and pay period history. Now I can select the pay period that I want to take a look at. So I'm going to look at the previous pay period from 8/13 to 8/26. And if I scroll down, I have an option to reopen that pay period if I needed to. I can print out a PDF. I can do print out an Excel or JSON. So if I download the PDF here, this is how it looks like. So this is how the pay period looks like on PDF.
And if you notice it, it does split it by hourly and salary.
Oh yeah, that's correct. So the one thing that I forgot to mention is inside the pay period as well. If I take a look at Rodney, for example, oh, let's go select here. Rodney, for example, so we set the holiday pay for Rod as regular pay. So as you can see on the 29th, this is just regular pay here. But on Rodney, if I click on it, you'll see that he got paid. So this Rodney got paid double time here.
So but that basically is just stating that whatever the holiday pay scale is set for per employee is what determines what their pay is for that holiday.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna switch my screens here. I'm gonna go to my iPad. Right, as you can see, I am logged on to the point of sale here on my Aldelo Express application. I'm going to enter in my access code. My access code does have the highest access. And if I click on the three dots or the ellipses button on the right side, I'm going to access time card and I'm going to clock in. Now, if I go back into time card, you'll see that I have an option for my break here. I can use my break for regular break or my lunch. I also have report tips. Now, mainly report tips is for cash transactions, just because when you run a credit card transactions, the tips will automatically be added here. So mainly this is for just cash tips. Right, so we can take a look at my work schedule on the left side. So this is my work schedule here. If I swipe my schedule from right to left, I have access to all of the employees' work schedules. I can also send an email as well. And if I needed to make an adjustment on someone's time card, I can. All I need to do is click on time cards on the left. So for example, I wanted to add another time card for myself here. I can click on the green button on the top right-hand side. And now I have an option to add my breaks or my lunches. In this case, I'm going to click on the blue button. And I'm going to select Sunday. And let's say that I clocked in for 5 hours. And then I can click on the checkbox in the bottom. As you can see, I just added the Sunday time here. Now, if I needed to add my break schedules, I can add that as well. So I can click on the green button. And then now I can add my breaks. At the end of the day, you want to go ahead and clock out. So I click on clock out. There's a clock out button here. You do need to make sure that you adjust your tips first. I'm going to select clock out. Now, another option on updating people's time cards is from the end of day screen. So if I click on the three dots again, or the ellipses button, I have end of day here. And then from this screen, I'm going to swipe from left to right. And then on the left side, we have calendar with the time here. So if I click on the calendar with the time, you'll see that I can update people's time cards. You'll see that a lot of people are still clocked in. So for example, Shane P, I can clock this person out. So I can click on the present. You'll see that I have options to take a look at his time card. So if I needed to add or close this person out for the day, I just need to remind myself that this person clocked in at 11:40. I do need to delete this time card and re-add it in. So I can click on the blue button on the top, and then I can click on the X to delete the time card. Now I can click on the blue button on the top, and then add today's date. He clocked in at 11:40. And then clock this person out at, let's do 11 or 12:40, so 1 hour shift. Now, if you needed to add breaks, I can. So as you can see, there's breaks here. So on Sunday, this person did not work any breaks. I can add that in by clicking on the green button. Now I can select the time. And then click on the blue button on the bottom. As you can see, I just added a lunch break here. Then I have 4 more employees to close out. The other place that you can take a look at the time card is through the delivery module. So I can click on the 3 dots, then click on driver. And then on the bottom, there's a time card down here. I can clock in, and it'll take me directly to the time card module. All right, so if you enter in access code that has minimum access or something below highest access, if I clock in, it's going to ask for manager code. And if I go back into the time card, you'll notice that if I go back into my work schedule, you'll notice that I only have access to my work schedule here. I don't have any access on the side. If I go to time card, I only see my time card. I don't see anyone else's time card here. All right, do we have any other questions?
Okay, it looks like we took care of everything in the chat. Does anyone want to ask their questions verbally here? So we'll go ahead and end the meeting. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel here. We do thank you for joining.